welcome to this episode of Explore Ada. This month we'll take a look at the early history of East Central University, which is nearing close to a century of higher education in Ada. We'll be right back after this.
I'd been at Norman and it was handy to move here. My mother lived at Norman at the time. It was handy for me for family reasons. And I'd known several people who were teaching at East Central. I'd known them through OU, and they kept telling me, oh man, you gotta come down here, it's a great place. But I didn't know how much I was gonna fall in love with the students here, and colleagues, and just the climate, you know, of the place. What a neat place it was, and I did fall in love with it, and that love affair has never ended.
For nearly a century, East Central University, the official school name since 1985, has served as one of Oklahoma's finest institutions of higher learning, turning out hundreds of thousands of well-educated, productive graduates. While new and exciting chapters continue to be written at Ada's prestigious university, there exists a compelling backstory that is every bit as unique. There almost wasn't a college in Ada. Before statehood, Oklahoma Territory legislators had seen fit to establish a number of universities there. Indian Territory, by comparison, had none. Although Ada was incorporated in 1901 and had worked hard to put itself on the map, there were no early hopes of any community in Indian Territory landing a public college of any kind. After Oklahoma joined the Union in 1907, the newly formed state legislature decided to add at least 2 new normal schools, also known as teachers' colleges, in what had formerly been Indian Territory. Tahlequah was all but certain to get one where its Cherokee Women's Seminary had been for more than 50 years. What other location would be a lot trickier to determine. Ada faced another challenge in its bid for a college, namely stiff competition. According to news reports from the day, there were as many as 11 other Oklahoma communities battling for the normal school. As for population, Ada ranked in the middle of the pack, another unremarkable trait. Considering the long-term economic and cultural benefits a university would bring the winning community, the ensuing political scrum promised to be brutal, and indeed it was. As it had in other early community-wide efforts, Ada's well-organized and well-oiled 25,000 Club stepped forward to lead the campaign to land the normal school. The club had connections at the Capitol in Guthrie and was certainly not afraid to work hard. It took aim at Oklahoma's first legislative session. The early work resulted in zero payoff. Oklahoma's first legislature failed to decide on any location for the new normal school, effectively ending the discussion until the following year. However, the 25,000 Club remained focused, and the community was more convinced than ever that it needed the school as insurance for future growth. Throughout the political off-season, Adens continued to campaign for the normal school. More than 100 citizens contributed cash to a fund that ultimately would be used to bribe state lawmakers. The fund contained $478.10, no small sum considering the times. When the second legislative session convened in January 1909, Ada was ready. Early on in this session, legislators narrowed down the location of the new normal school to Ada and Durant. Both the House and Senate voted to locate the newest normal school in Durant. That school was established and is now known as Southeastern Oklahoma State University. Ada was dejected, but the story doesn't end there. A Duncan senator had submitted a new bill placing yet another normal school in his hometown. When Senate Bill 83 was called up for discussion in the committee as a whole, an Ada senator made a fateful motion. He had quietly lined up support among his colleagues, emboldening his political power play. He moved to strike Duncan from the bill and insert Ada in its place. The Duncan senator rallied his teammates but was unable to reclaim the new normal school bill in the name of Duncan. The Senate passed the bill 29-7, with Ada named as the college's imminent location. But the battle was only beginning. The bill moved over to the House, where it likely faced more rigorous opposition. Members of the 25,000 Club rode to the rescue once again, bringing to Guthrie with them the payola it had raised just months before. Strategic palms were duly greased. On March 12, 1909, the House entertained Senate Bill 83. Adans filled the gallery and its corridors. During the roll call vote, it became apparent that Ada might again fall short. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that many representatives who had pledged their support to Ada had sneaked away in hopes of preserving their political necks. Members of the Ada delegation spread throughout the Capitol to round up the lost sheep, and soon there were enough present to pass the bill. Governor Haskell wired the Ada News on March 25, 1909, to inform the community that he had signed Senate Bill 83. As word spread throughout town, every steam whistle sounded, and every citizen celebrated in the streets. On June 11, 1909, the law creating East Central Normal School went into effect, and Ada was finally in the clear. The importance of Ada securing East Central cannot be overstated. The impact the college had then, and has now, is enormous.
You just can't imagine how important it is economically for the city of Ada, not only directly through financial payroll and the purchase of goods and services, but also in the more intrinsic values of having programs of art and music and those types of extracurricular activities that help to enrich the lives of the citizenry.
Selection of a campus site quickly ascended the priority list. Two locations were considered, one on the southwestern edge of town and another on the east edge of town. During the summer of 1909, Ada pioneer J.F. McKeel took the state location board to the eastern site, drew a cross in the dirt with his heel, and said she ought to be here. And with that, the location was settled. Dan Hayes, a Chickasaw with property holdings in that area, donated 16.5 acres toward a new 20-acre campus. The first person sought for president was the Reverend E.N. Sweet, a well-known Methodist pastor and anti-saloon activist in Oklahoma. Reverend Sweet, however, didn't see a future for the school and declined the appointment. Governor Haskell suggested his friend Charles W. Briles as the first president. Briles accepted the appointment and served as East Central's president during its first 7 years of operation. Announcements for the new two-year college appeared in area newspapers in August 1909, setting out the purpose of the school, admission requirements, religious influences, training schools, athletics opportunities, and room and board, which was available in private Ada homes for as little as $3 per week. East Central Normal School wasted no time starting a football program. The first practice was held September 4th, 1909, 2 weeks before classes started. The nickname Tigers and the colors of orange and black were selected and have been in use ever since.
They definitely expect a lot from you as a student. I mean, it's definitely, the classes are pretty difficult. But I think that makes you work harder and try to be the best you can be, I guess you could say.
The instructors, very helpful. You get a lot of one-on-one time with them. If there's a problem you're having in a certain course, it's not hard for you to go to them and to just talk. They give up a lot of time, and you know, they share their own experiences of when they were in university, hardships they went through. So they know what we're going through, and they're always there to help us and, you know, lend a helping hand, and you know, they're just awesome.
Senate Bill 83 had provided a $100,000 appropriation for an East Central normal school building, but no money for faculty salaries or other expenses. Nevertheless, the State Board of Education appointed a faculty and announced an official opening date of September 20th, 1909. On that date, the classes met at the newly built First Methodist Church on 14th Street, with the full faculty in attendance. Ada's business leaders invested in the town's future once more by raising money to fund first-year salaries. They were later reimbursed. On June 9, 1910, the East Central Normal School conducted its first commencement exercise. Diplomas were presented to the college's first 7 graduates. By autumn of that year, the school gained its first building. It's still standing and is now known as Science Hall. President Briles split his 7 years between the campus and the Capitol, fighting for the school's political livelihood. In 1911, newly elected Governor Lee Cruz indicated he wanted to reduce the number of normal schools. Under his administration, efforts began to eliminate 14 institutions, including East Central. Ada, along with other host communities, rose up in opposition, and in 1912 the petition was thrown out. Briles continued to spearhead efforts to preserve East Central in the face of proposed cutbacks. In 1913, members of the Oklahoma legislature drafted a bill to reduce the number of normal schools in the state, but it was unsuccessful. Later, a measure that would have allowed state residents to decide whether to abolish some schools narrowly failed in the House of Representatives. Briles worked tirelessly to protect the college he had been enlisted to lead. East Central's second president, and the one with the shortest term, was Dr. J.M. Gordon. He took over in 1916 and shepherded the school through its first enrollment downturn brought about by World War I. There were several key changes during his 4-year tenure. In 1917, the State Board of Education assigned districts to Oklahoma's normal schools. This effectively ended, for a period of time, unrestricted competition throughout the state for students, while at the same time ensuring that each normal school would have enough students to justify keeping its doors open. The district from which East Central could accept students included 11 Oklahoma counties. Other significant developments on Dr. Gordon's watch involved the physical plant. He oversaw the construction of the President's Home in 1918. The following year, the state legislature passed a $100,000 appropriation for a new classroom building. Finally, at Dr. Gordon's suggestion, citizens started gathering funds to build a gateway at the west entrance to the school's campus that would serve as a memorial to East Central students who had died in World War I.
After going here just even a semester, getting to know everybody is real, seemed to be real tight-knit feel, and you could really get one-on-one with, your instructors. And I liked the people, I liked the environment. It was just a real good place to go to school.
I definitely have a voice in the classroom. I always state my opinions, and they let me say whatever I want to say, and if they don't agree, they let me know, and we just kind of debate about it, which I've done that in several of my classrooms.
The shortest presidential term was followed by the longest to date. Dr. Adolph Linscheid served as East Central's president for 29 years, and likely would have for many more had his tenure not ended prematurely with his illness and subsequent death. Linscheid started off with a bang, as the school was instantly converted into a 4-year university. Dr. Linscheid spent much of the early 1920s traveling through East Central's 11-county district. He would stop and speak at practically every crossroad, selling people on the value and importance of a college education. President Linscheid's methods were evidently successful. In 1928, enrollment at East Central State Teachers College reached a new high of 1,373. His stumping in rural Oklahoma also paid off. A survey from that same year revealed that the majority of East Central students were coming from farm homes. Like the families that raised them, East Central students were, and still are for the most part, more conservative than those found on major metropolitan campuses.
In 1970, we had about 2,000 students. They were typically not as privileged as many of the students that I had seen at OU, but they had an incredible work ethic. You know, you could lay it out for them and they'd work on it. Very honest, very open, you know. Most of them from Ada or Stratford, Pauls Valley, Sulphur, Calvin, Stewart, you know, right around here, those kind of kids. They're basically the same kind of students we have today. Our students are still that way.
East Central, when I first came here, I was in charge of exchange students from other states, other countries. And that was an interesting role. Quite a few came from Massachusetts at that time. When they first got here, seeing the postcards showing the Ada hanging, I got a handful of those, and I said, now, write your folks and tell them we're pretty strict in that way, and which they probably did. But Ada got a lot of publicity out of that hanging.
I'm amazed every day at the politeness, at how our students care about each other. I don't know when I've ever seen an East Central student be rude to anyone. Go over and sit down in the student center. Go out here on the Tiger Commons around the fountain out here and sit on the benches. And I think you'll be amazed that we have some pretty special young people on this campus.
In August 1927, local banker P.A. Norris donated close to 11.5 acres adjoining the East Central campus for an athletic field. The Oklahoma legislature kicked in $10,000, and by 1928 there was a football field. Perhaps more importantly, the new field expanded East Central's campus. The campus size would triple to 60 acres under Linscheid's watch. The Great Depression brought an entirely new set of challenges, but Dr. Linscheid and his staff persevered. During the early 1930s, faculty salaries were cut 3 times to about half of what they had been. President Linscheid called a meeting with his instructors, who agreed they would rather spread the available funds among the entire staff rather than turn someone away. The later part of the 1930s ushered in happier times. Enrollment had leveled off, but there remained a steady stream of graduates. 2 new dormitories brought much-needed relief to an overcrowded housing situation. The curriculum was broadened to include liberal arts training. World War II decimated East Central's enrollment, and the school was held together for a couple of years by the pilot training program. In 1944, enrollment dropped to 394 students, lower than the inaugural year. But after the war, and with the help of the GI Bill, enrollment rebounded to 1,430 in 1948, a new high.
When I first moved here as a student, there was where the Trinity Baptist Church is now, there was a boarding house there. And I stayed there for 2 or 3 months. There wasn't a lot of off-campus things. Mostly were limited to what you could do on campus. I guess as a young man, I felt like most of the action was on the campus, and So I decided to move to Fenton Hall at that time.
With the return of soldiers, housing instantly became a problem. East Central acquired some buildings in Wichita, Kansas and trucked them to the campus. It also bought a former hospital building in Ada and refurbished it into a dormitory for men. An important and needed addition to the campus came with the construction of the A. Linscheid Library, dedicated in October 1949. Dr. Linscheid was critically ill at the time and would die within a few weeks. Dr. Linscheid served as East Central's leader for 3 decades, an incredible span that allowed him to accomplish many long-term goals. Evidence of his leadership can be found throughout the campus, and he set a new standard of leadership in terms of long-range planning and fundraising that successive presidents have worked hard to match.
And I would like to be able to have completed 3 or 4 other projects that we put on the drawing board, but you know, there's just not enough time in a career to get it all done. And when you think you have it all done, well, you sure ought to retire, because there's a lot more still to do. And I knew I couldn't get it all done, although for a long time I thought I might be able to. But the further it went, the longer I was in that position, the more I realized, you know, there's just so many things that still need to be done, and can be done and will be done in the next presidential tenure of service.
I'd say it definitely competes with OU, and it's about a fraction of the cost, so I'm loving it here right now.
But here I've learned so much, and I have just skyrocketed into something that I really wanted to do, and that was just bizarre to me. I never had something like that. I never learned so much at any one particular class, so I really loved ECU for that.
Luckily, I haven't had to take out any student loans yet, and so far I'm debt-free and still going to college, so I'm pretty happy with it.
New president Dr. Charles A. Spencer started his distinguished 20-year tenure facing a familiar situation, the specter of war. This time it was the Korean conflict. The war drained East Central's enrollment in 1951. However, student enrollment would steadily climb each year under Dr. Spencer's leadership and break 3,000 before he left office. Like Dr. Linscheid before him, Dr. Spencer would serve as East Central's president for a long period of time, providing the school with a stable, focused leadership. It was a plus for East Central, as the majority of colleges changed leadership on a much more frequent basis. In its complete 98-year history, East Central has only had 7 presidents.
Oklahoma has had a lot of long-tenured presidents, but they've also had a lot of short-tenured presidents as well. And the average tenure for a president at a public college in Oklahoma is something on the order of 5 years.
I believe that East Central has had a lot of stability with only 7 presidents. There's a lot of consistency that the individuals can rely on a president that will be able to put in their programs over time and that will be successful in that way. I think it shows strong leadership by the previous presidents and support by the Board of Regents. So I think it says a lot about the university, and I think the university has grown, it's excelled in a very positive way because of the leadership of the 6 previous presidents.
Academic options also expanded under Spencer. In 1954, East Central introduced its first 5th-year program, a Master of Teaching degree. Medical technology came to the campus in 1956 and involved the cooperation of the college and Ada's Valley View Hospital. It featured 4 years of classes and laboratory instruction. The campus continued to grow as well. Dedication of the Memorial Student Union building came in May of 1950, with a bronze plaque installed in its lobby listing the names of those East Central students who lost their lives in service during World War II. The campus expanded west across Francis Avenue when the new Horace Mann building went into use in 1953. Planning for the Briles Residence Hall and Cafeteria in 1954 marked the beginning of down-the-hill campus construction. More housing and classrooms were built, along with a new building to house the Industrial Arts and Education departments. The Boswell Chapel was also constructed during the 1950s. East Central marked its golden anniversary midway through Dr. Spencer's term and punctuated it with a commencement address by its most famous alumnus, former Oklahoma Governor and U.S. Senator Robert S. Kerr, who reflected on the importance of teachers to American society, as well as the institutions like East Central that prepared them to succeed. East Central's first 50 years are filled with fascinating people and stories. It's a colorful and unique history. As the university's centennial draws near, the entire campus is once again in a nostalgic mood.
There are many, many plans that we want to put in place for that celebration, and I am so fortunate to be the 7th president during the centennial. First and foremost, we are going to be reenacting the events that led up to the signing in 1909 of the beginning of East Central, the creation of East Central University. But beyond that, we have many musical events, theatrical events that we'd like to have to celebrate it throughout the year. Virtually the entire year of 2009 will be dedicated to various events in order to celebrate our centennial. It's a big thing for us.
One thing that hasn't changed throughout East Central's history is the opportunity it presents for people to better themselves intellectually, culturally, and professionally.
Well, to me, it has meant a tremendous amount of personal gratification, allowed me to accomplish things that I would never have dreamed of. Just as becoming the president here, I never thought about it, never dreamed of it. The doors are open, and you have to be willing to walk through them and take advantage of the opportunities that are there. I guess that's what East Central did for me.
Did you know that East Central University is home to some fairly exclusive degree programs? For example, ECU is the only public institution in Oklahoma to offer a Bachelor of Science degree in legal studies. ECU is the only state college and one of just 21 nationally to offer an accredited Bachelor of Science degree in environmental health science. ECU is one of only 3 American universities to offer a Bachelor of Science degree in medical physics. To top it off, ECU maintains one of the few cartography departments in the country. Now you know.